And welcome back to Fresh Outlook, everybody. I'm TWB. Sadly, this week we mourn the loss of legendary film critic Roger Ebert. He changed the film industry as we know it. Let's take a look. This week, at a somber funeral and a star-studded memorial service in Chicago, Americans marked the passing of a beloved cultural figure, the legendary film critic Roger Ebert. From the 1970s onward, Ebert challenged audiences to look at the movies differently. With their trademark thumbs-up and thumbs-down reviews, he and longtime co-critic Gene Siskel helped millions of TV viewers to connect with both the making and the message behind popular films. His passionate critiques could make or break a film and help to launch many a now famous director or actor. For Americans of a certain generation, Roger Ebert was the movies. Certainly was. It's hard to see the deterioration there. I mean, he was suffering from thyroid cancer for longer than a decade, I believe, before his passing. So it's tough to watch. But I do want to introduce another member of our panel, Bill. Welcome. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and
Bill
why you're
Timoney.
here.
Well, I was most recently over at Ebert today doing the film commentary for them, and I'm delighted to be here because, like everybody else growing up at that certain time, watching Siskel and Ebert's at the movies and sneak previews had a major influence on how I approached my own addiction to the movies.
Right. Well, I mean, I just want to point out, this generation, they don't know who Siskel and Ebert, who they were. I mean, that is definitely something that, if you're a 20-something, who?
Well, you don't know Siskel and Ebert, but you do know Ebert because he had this incredible transition into the internet, particularly after he lost the ability to speak with his disease. And he became a champion of film and the debate about the worth of film on the internet. So his use of the internet brought him, I think, a whole new generation of fans.
Well, let's go back old school for a moment.
Sure.
What made Ebert, in terms of when you were watching him review a film on TV, how was that different from reading a review in the newspaper, Dee Dee, let's say?
I think he was so good at being critical without being overly critical, if that makes sense. He was good at picking apart movies and putting it together in a short period of time about this is why it worked, this is why it didn't, this is the lighting, this is why it was beautiful cinematography, and it was an art form, how he described movies. It was really amazing. So I think that's what set him apart. He was just so good at it.
Yeah. Do you think most people agreed with his critique?
I think they did. What strikes me is that there was a time when I saw him critique a movie, and he used one word. He said, "This movie represents Gestalt." That's a psychological term. And what it really means is that you look at today based on the past and the present, where you're going and where you've been. And he described the movie with one word, and he described that word. It was just brilliant.
But if you didn't know what that word meant, you have to look it up.
He explained it.
Okay.
He explained it immediately and clearly. And that's what people like. They like to get it. And he presented it that way.
So do you feel like he really was a grand communicator? Everybody understood exactly what he was saying?
Well, the dynamic with Siskel definitely helped. And we should remember Gene Siskel at this time. He passed way too young back in '99. And it was their dynamic together, because Roger had been on television for 4 years in Chicago PBS before he was paired with Siskel. And they were able to bring, just as you might not agree with somebody's opinion of a movie that you loved and they hated, or vice versa, well, now you had two guys there. And to hear one of them say, "I really love this movie, I really hated this movie," because they weren't of one mind. Very often they were as disagreeable about a film as you and I might be about something. And that actually, I thought, informed the dynamic and made it more interesting, and it helped you understand the product even more.
Well, let's talk about some movies. I mean, let's go down through the line, sort of. Are there movies that you did or did not go see based on what Roger Ebert said? Bill.
Pearl Harbor, the big budget extravaganza by Michael Bay. He opened his review, Roger Ebert did, with, "This is a 2-hour movie crammed into 3 hours. It is a movie. It is a movie about a Japanese sneak attack on an American love triangle. It is a movie directed without wit or wisdom or originality."
It's like, Roger, tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, and there it was. He did a review of a movie by the comic Andrew Dice Clay. It's called Dice Rules. And he said, "This is an abhorrent film. It could not do more damage to the career of Andrew Dice Clay than if it was made as a documentary by somebody who hated him."
Wow.
He was.
But didn't that make people go see it just for the shock value of it all? Like, how bad is this movie? I got to go see it.
Sure, and that's okay. But here's my point about film criticism. And certainly, Mr. Ebert didn't invent film criticism. In fact, he was influenced by his hero, Pauline Kael, who is really the #1 film critic in the 20th century. He said, "Look, here's what I think it is. You spend a ton of money making a movie, millions and millions of dollars. You got everybody together, and with the best intentions, normally, you're going to make what you think is a good product for the people to enjoy. And when it comes out bad, Like if you baked something or cooked something and it's a disaster.
But it's such a subjective thing.
Well, wait a minute, you don't still serve a bad meal.
Right.
But somebody makes a bad movie, they spend so many millions of dollars,
Right.
they have to fool people.
Right, you got to spin it.
So if you need people like Roger, they are quality control.
So-
They're like Consumer Affairs saying, don't believe the hype, this is a bad movie.
So I'm
Something
curious,
negative.
you guys, let's talk about movies for just a second, because he mentioned Pearl Harbor. What was a movie you did or did not see based on what Ebert
Actually,
said?
I'll turn it around. I'm not sure about the movie. I will turn on just to watch their critique. I like the words that they used and what they said and how they said it. As a psychologist, I was more interested in that than actually whether I would go to the movie or not.
Interesting. You're the one.
That's how profound I thought they
Did you
were.
ever go see a movie that Ebert?
I just can't tell you which one I would.
Okay.
I can tell you another one I did not go see. David Lynch was all the rage at one time. Then he made a movie called Lost Highway. And Ebert's review said, watching Lost Highway is like kissing a mirror. You like what you see, but it's not much fun and it's kind of cold.
Very good. Do you think he had, okay, well, I'll ask you the follow-up question in a second, but Didi, let's hear from you. Any movies that stuck out for you because of Roger Ebert?
Well, I do remember some movies that I wanted to go see, and then when he gave a good review, I was like, yes, like the movie Hoosier is one of my favorite, and he gave a wonderful review about that. And I remember one of his quotes, too, is whenever he said, well, if you want to see a movie every time and it's fresh and new, that, you know, that's a good movie, and that's a sign of a good movie. So, and even when he said negative things and was very critical, I found it so fascinating and interesting. I still want to go see the movie. I think all movies are good. Even if it's a bad movie, you see, I enjoy them. I just like movies.
You've never seen a bad movie?
No, I enjoy bad movies. So, no, even if it's a bad movie, I enjoy it.
So it's like pizza.
I do too.
It's like pizza. Even when it's bad, it's
Yeah, I just enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that probably Mr. Ebert did as well. I mean, even though he'd be critical of it, he enjoyed watching it because he loved the movies. And those of us who love movies no matter what, I think could get a little bit more out of what he said. I mean, I really enjoyed him.
I think where he would agree with you 99% of what you said was at the bottom line was the experience for the audience. We love movies. We're passionate about the experience. His review was Star Wars, nailed it. At the very beginning, in episode 4, he said, this movie fooled my imagination. It made me come up out of my chair, made me forget I was in a chair, and made me think I was up there with them. That's that transformative power of movies that's so great when a movie maker takes advantage of that and distrusts the audience and takes advantage of the audience, like Ebert's review of the Rob Reiner movie North. He wrote, I
didn't see that.
hate this movie. I hate
I have
the
a
fact that
question
it
for you.
assumed the audience would like
Did
it.
Ebert, I mean, we know he's beloved, but did he ever get it wrong? I mean, or could he do no wrong? I mean, whatever he said, was it always right? Or did he ever have a bad review where he got it wrong?
I think he's probably right for most people, almost all the time.
So he's speaking for the common man.
Because I think he relates it to real life. That's what he did best.
Okay.
The words he chose and how he would present the movie and what it meant to people.
Didi's shaking her head.
Yeah, I disagree. I think it's totally subjective. That's just his opinion. Doesn't mean it's our opinion, but what I liked about it was his thought-provoking. Because you talk about what he liked, what he didn't like, and made us all think about
But
it.
did he ever lambast a movie
Yes.
that did very well?
Yeah, we
and
talked about
he
it.
looked like he had egg on his face?
The Godfather,
Because
we were
here's,
talking about
here's
that.
Roger Ebert,
Well,
who knows all.
He gave a better review of Godfather 3 than he gave to Godfather 2.
Okay.
And you can't find anybody walking on the planet today.
Yeah,
whose
definitely
Godfather
wrong.
3 is better than Godfather
And
2.
do people sort of, give him?
Well, yeah, he in general he hated the slasher movement of the early mid '80s, the Friday the 13th ripoffs, and as a result, he really hated a lot of the horror genre. And a lot of filmmakers and writers at the time really took him to task for that. Like Stephen King even went at him about some of his reviews, for he just hated the whole genre.
Right.
But there's another thing we got to remember: he took a break early on in his film career as a critic to become a filmmaker, and he wrote 3 screenplays that were made, including Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, an X-rated film that is known kind of as a cult hit today, but was a disaster at its time. And it was filled with sex and violence. So to hear him to really dismiss, say, the horror genre for its gore, when he himself wrote Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
So sounds like a different guy in front of the camera than behind the
And he
camera.
actually
Different
said,
filmmaker
and
than
he said in like the
critiquer.
90s, he did the commentary on the DVD, and he went, I was a different guy back then. It's 37 years ago, I was a different guy.
Right, and his views evolved. But when you think of the duo, though, of Siskel and Ebert, they argued civilly, you might say, which I don't know if we really see so much anymore. But do you think there's something to be said about that, Didi?
Oh, yes, I agree. I think they had a wonderful dynamic, and I really wish in the political world now that we had people that could have that type of debate, because we haven't seen something like that for a while. But no, I think they were wonderful for that. It was such a nice dynamic just to listen. It was just it was entertainment. I mean, we didn't have to watch the movie. I mean, like you said, I think it was just entertaining to watch.
I agree. I think the interpersonal contact between the two of them and how they presented themselves, and even when they argued and disagreed, you were more interested. You were more engaged. And sometimes people don't know how to do that,
Right,
but they did.
They respected each other.
Yes.
I think
They
that's
did,
the
yeah.
distinction.
Yeah,
Whereas
back a
today, you know, co-hosts,
Yeah.
they don't necessarily respect each other.
Well, I like that they both listen to each other.
What did you say?
I don't know. It's
Silly
miles away.
joke.
But I do think that there were times I thought Roger was a little harsher on Gene than he needed to be.
Now, do you think he was doing that just for the pure shock value, for the TV
I
shock
think they were
value,
doing
or
it for the TV
for the ratings?
dynamic.
Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
got it. Now, okay, so who's the next Ebert? I mean, is there anyone? Because they had Ebert and Ropert at the movies,
had
and
the
they've
perfect
had
person.
Who's that?
TWB.
Oh, go on.
We want you.
We
So
want
that-
you.
Thank you. Cut that out.
That'd be a great job. I mean, it doesn't get any better now. I mean, to be a
Yeah.
film critic,
No, that
seriously,
is,
if you
yeah.
love the movies, that's the best
Right.
job you could have.
But is there someone? I mean, you know, and don't say Ryan Seacrest because.
Why was I thinking of that? Why was I thinking of
never
that?
mind.
But what I mean by, you know, when you think of the generation of the Siskel and Ebert, I mean, I feel like this generation, we're missing that. We're missing that
Yeah.
one person
That could be a reality show.
that we all really
That's a great
revere
idea.
and we respect.
Well, I think people in general don't really read film reviews, or they're not presented the way they used to be.
Right.
There are people out there who are quote unquote reviewing film, and all they're doing is passing along a talking point from the studio. So there isn't an aesthetic as far as how to judge art and how to communicate that. And I thought Ebert was always great, where he would say, "This is not my cup of tea, but if you like this,
Right.
then you'll like that." Or if you like this, they're trying to make you think that is this, but this is not that. Did I? Yeah, right. So
What'd you say?
So I think he was, I don't know, miles away. So I think he did that well. I don't know who's out there. Harry Knowles at Ain't It Cool News. He's not on camera, but he's a guy who runs Ain't It Cool
Right.
News. And I think Harry possesses that sort of sensibility. Whether or not he wants to be the on-camera guy is a different story.
Right, and I think today, just with the dissemination of information with the internet, everyone's a blogger, everyone's a reviewer, so you just don't have that one person that everybody can look to.
But it doesn't mean everybody should be.
Right, true. Final thought. We're out of time.
I'll bet somebody steps up with a really dynamic, great personality
Okay.
and takes stage like he did. Somebody will, but I'm
Oprah
not sure who.
Winfrey.
I think there should be a reality show to find a new Roger Ebert. I think it would work with all the reality shows. That'd be a good one.
That's a pitch.
Or a new documentary film.
Absolutely.
Film about filmmaking on it. Anyway, you guys, thank you. That was really exciting and
Thank you.
fun. I wish we had more time, but we got to move on. Coming up, we'll continue the conversation by talking about a growing trend in the U.S. that keeps getting bigger and bigger. We'll tell you what that trend is next on Fresh Outlook. Stay with us.